Well, welcome back. I'm Danny,
And I'm Riley.
and we're your average neighbors. Before we start this episode, we just want to take the time to have a trigger warning. We want to make it clear that there will be some sensitive topics. We will be talking about eating disorders, and Miriam is kind enough to open up in her testimony about that. We're going to be hearing her testimony for the first time with you guys, but we did want to make sure that she made it clear to us about that. And we want to make it clear to you guys, we are not clinical professionals. Any advice that we give is simply Miriam's experience about dealing with that through her faith. And we are not, again, clinical professionals in the area to be speaking about it. So if you guys listen or have any questions, you can reach out. But we obviously definitely suggest you guys go to professionals. And with that being said, welcome, Miriam.
Hello.
I always like that our guests introduce themselves, so if you want to go ahead.
Hi, I'm Miriam. I am a student at FSU. Danny is a day older than me, and we
This
are
is
both we're co-interns at DCC, and it is the best thing ever.
You want to tell them the birthday thing?
Okay. So I was scheduled to be born
Scheduled.
on 4/4/4, and I was a stubborn little child, and I didn't come out until the next day at 6 a.m. So Danny has a birthday that I always wanted, but mine is just a digit off.
Such a servant.
Such
a servant.
Such a servant.
She allowed me to
I
have
gave
it.
you
Wow.
the birthday.
Well, I was
hours.
2 days late.
Okay.
Is that bad?
Or no.
I was supposed to be 4-2.
God, it's me again.
It's your
On my
So
next birthday, can I have 444?
my next birthday.
Yeah, it's cool to being older. Sometimes you gotta impart wisdom on the younger kids, and I've really
Yeah.
been able. It's been really fun interning with Miriam with that because I get to depart wisdom as a older role model for her as she looks up to her.
Shit like that.
I'm older than y'all though.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Usually I'm a summer birthday, so every time in my grade, I'm always the last. And now, I'm older.
So you could say that the first will be last,
First would be last.
but the last.
Mm.
Will be first.
Mm-hmm.
So Miriam, okay,
Yeah.
you're an intern, right? You
Yep.
intern ironically for Lindsay, correct?
Yes.
You are a production intern,
Media
right? How long have you
production.
been doing that for? Because I came on after you.
I've been here since January.
Oh wow, so not okay. There's
Yeah.
a couple. Okay, and how's that experience been for you?
It's been the most life-giving experience I've ever had. Using my spiritual gifts for the church is just a whole different ballgame. Because normally it's like writing for academics or designing for the school yearbook, and finally it's a combination of both for a much, much bigger cause than myself or from academics. And it's just been really, really incredible to see God move so much, because now I have like a front row seat
Yeah.
to all the cool things that happens.
And you said that you use your spiritual gifts, right? Can you elaborate on what that means?
Yeah.
Because we had an episode,
Mhm.
and here, check it out. We had an episode talking about that, but I want to hear what does that mean to you when you say I'm able to use my spiritual gifts in
Yeah.
production?
Okay, so the story is I was originally a political science major. And yeah, that was just because everyone told me that I was good at that growing up, because I was always in student government, behind the scenes work, that kind of thing. And I won political essay competitions, it just made sense. But then I was reflecting at the end of the first semester of my freshman year, and I was like, I don't want to be a lobbyist, and I don't want to be begging people for money my whole life. So what am I doing here? What do I really think will glorify God the most in my life? Because what I want to do when I get to Heaven's Gates is run up to Jesus and him tell me, well done, good and faithful servant. So I was reflecting on this, and I was like, okay, so the gifts that I know God has given me are communicating with others, writing certainly, and just community in general. So I was like, what do I do with that? And there's this major that I had been eyeing for a while, and it's editing, writing, and media. And I was like, but what employee is going to hire an editing, writing, and media major? Because I've never heard of that, right? But I just took a leap of faith because I really felt like God was leading me to it. And whenever I decided to do that, literally within the month, this internship opportunity just dropped in my lap. Like, I didn't even ask for it, and it was just, they asked me. So it's just so clear that, like, I'm really where I'm meant to be now. And, like, I had to sacrifice the want for money in my future career to just say, like, God, I'm just going where you want me.
No, that's awesome. And I really like how you defined what your gifts were, and then we're like, okay, so with what I am blessed to do well, where does that fit best? And kind of just keeping it simple. You know, my boss used to say something. It was like, keep it simple. He added something else, but like, yeah, it was like that was the idea, is that, you know, sometimes it's not, has to be some giant revelation. It's just like, well, what am I good at? How can I use this to serve the Lord? So that's really cool. And so that's now, you know, you're an intern.
Yeah.
You're able to do all these great things. What is your story, I guess? Like, how did you come to know the Lord before all the, I know what my spiritual gift is. Like, what was the build up to that?
Okay. So I grew up in a Christian home. I had the privilege of doing that. And I would say that, like, I relied on my faith to just feed off of emotion. It was never off of, like, reading the word in my own time or anything like that. Because the church that I went to, there wasn't, like, a youth group or anything. It was, like, a tiny church. And they just never, like, I guess, catered to my needs as a young person. So I didn't know, like, the story of Jonah and the big fish, like, you know, because I didn't read my Bible because it wasn't told to. So I definitely had, like, a faith that relied on summer camps every summer to, like, revamp my faith.
Like that, like the traditional Camp High type of thing?
Yes, I'm referring to the Camp High. But it obviously was not sustainable because I was just chasing a feeling. I wasn't chasing God. So whenever it comes to like freshman year of high school, my current best friend invited me to youth group at a different church. And so I was like, okay, I'll go. And I started, like, realizing, oh my gosh, there are people my age that go to church regularly and they read the Bible regularly. This is crazy. I have never seen this. So I got plugged in, and then I just totally left my parents' church. No hate. That's just how it was. I mean, we're all Christians, but we just go to different churches, and that's just how it was. But it was at my new church that I really learned the importance of having a scripture-based faith so that I could place my faith in fact and not feeling. Not that feeling is a bad thing, but you can't have just feeling. So I can't say that it was an immediate switch for me whenever I put my trust in God, but the word became flesh. So if you want to know Jesus, he is the flesh, but read the word because the word became flesh. And I just surrendered more and more of my life throughout high school to Jesus, and here we are now.
That's awesome. And so obviously, like during high school, you said that it's when you kind of started developing your faith, right? Did you, when you came to college, did that ever become difficult, or did you was it a smooth transition? What was that kind of transition from high school to college when it came to your faith?
I think that my faith snowballed in college because it got honestly a lot better. I mean, not to say that hard things didn't happen, but I mean, I took one step into DCC, not to like hype DCC up because there are plenty of great churches in Tallahassee, but I just felt at home. So like community groups being super emphasized is really like, I would say, where I've experienced so much spiritual growth. So I've just been able to see Jesus move so much more often because I'm on the lookout for it and I'm meditating on his word and like what he wants out of me throughout my day. So I'm like, I just have my eyes open for whenever it's going to happen, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. That's awesome, and that's really cool because a lot of time, I mean, I could say for myself, my faith didn't snowball when I get to college. It did the opposite.
Okay.
Whatever the opposite of snowball is, it did that.
Ball snow. I don't know. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. No, but it definitely that's a really encouragement because I feel like a lot of times, kids in high school will be like, "Well, I'm scared to go to college because I'm scared that my faith is gonna like dwindle." Like, because that's usually what happens.
Oh yeah.
But it's not like the necessary like case that always happens. So that's really encouraging. And if you don't mind me asking, you obviously mentioned to us that like eating disorders were a part of your testimony.
Yes.
Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. So I have always had the fear of gaining weight. It's just been like ingrained in me because I mean, any magazine you see a Photoshop model that has like, you know, a perfect body. And growing up and seeing that, you're like, okay, so this is what beauty is. So I would say that I always had like a healthy relationship with food until my senior year of high school. I was taking a health class and they basically had me take this online test about like, oh, well, how many calories are you supposed to have in a day? Like your age, your weight, like how often you exercise.
Did you do that in high school?
Yeah.
Like a public class?
As part of a class. Yeah. Well, this website told me 1,400 calories, which isn't even as much as you would give a toddler. But I saw that and I was like, oh, this is part of my class. So I believed it. And from my second semester of senior year, whenever I was like starting to get into the gym, I just was so focused on burning calories and I would count calories and like it just rapidly grew into an obsession. And I was always trying to make sure I had under 1,400 calories because I was like, okay, well, I need a calorie deficit to lose weight. And I wasn't even overweight. I just wanted to be skinny. So I didn't know how to control these thoughts because I had already lost control, basically. So I, like, it got worse whenever I got to college and I was in charge of everything I ate and what was in my pantry, a dorm pantry.
Which is typically not the most nutritious and like calorie
I also
giving.
didn't have a meal plan because I was like, nah, I can cook for myself.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I did, but it was low calorie
Dude,
stuff.
I said I cook for myself
That's
now,
impressive.
and I don't.
Well,
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad.
it's okay. I have some fantastic dorm meals for recipes. Anyway. But like anytime I'm at the grocery store, I was like flipping over to the nutrition label like, okay, no, I can't get that. It has more than 500 calories, you know? And then like my favorite food was chicken pot pie and like that has over 500 calories in it. I would be like, I can't eat this anymore. Or like I would eat apples and peanut butter for dinner and then I would flip over the label and start crying whenever I saw how much peanut butter calories I had eaten. Same thing with ice cream. Like I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I sought therapy. And I think therapy is fantastic because God has placed therapists in this world. So I think they are useful and they should be taken advantage of. But it was through therapy that I learned how to like take control of thoughts and just literally imagining a big red stop sign whenever I start thinking about calories. But I mean, I was in therapy for the majority of freshman year, and it was in my second semester that I was finally diagnosed with atypical anorexia because I would still eat, I would just really, really struggle with it, and I would regret it. And then because I'm not getting enough nutrition throughout the day, at the end of the night, I would end up eating a lot more snacks than I intended to. I wouldn't necessarily call it a binge because it wasn't like an incredible amount of food. It was just like more than I would have liked to have because my body was starving. But atypical anorexia is super underdiagnosed because you still eat, you still like food, you still want to like make community with it, but you just have such an internal struggle with calories and you have such an obsession with it. So whenever I got it, the diagnosis, I was like, okay, finally I know what's wrong. Now how do I take care of it? So there was this worship night, second semester of my freshman year. And I think that the most intimate prayers I've ever had have been when I'm on my knees. And so I kind of got away from the crowd a little bit, and I just got on my knees with God, because it was like in the midst of my really like hard struggles with eating, and I just like begged God to heal me, because I was tired of fighting it. And so it brings me to the verse, which I did mark. Okay, here we go. So 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says,
No, you that was perfect.
okay.
Yeah.
Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. So that verse came to my mind, and I was like, okay, well, if I can't do it for myself, I can do it for God. So just like if I have Jesus in me, I mean, like, Jesus can't starve, but I wouldn't want to starve Jesus, and he also doesn't want his daughter to starve either. So it took a lot of hard work, but I started eating 3 meals a day and setting up accountability for it, because my body is a temple and I want to respect it in that way. But it was over the summer that I really emphasized making sure I had breakfast every day, and I actually began to love breakfast, and it's probably my favorite meal now. But one thing that I have come to think of whenever I think about my body being a temple is that the Israelites, they used to bring meal offerings to the temple. And so whenever I pray over my meals, I try to pray God, I know that Jesus was the ultimate offering, but just let this offering of my food, like me eating my food, reflect the purpose of the temple. Whenever the temple was relevant. No, it's still relevant.
Don't worry. We know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you brought up a really interesting point about how you look at a magazine and you see all these really photoshopped or really slender and just consistently one-dimensional, this is what a body, an attractive body looks like, this is what an attractive person looks like. And it kind of as a Christian, I feel even though we tell ourselves that we don't look at the outside appearance, if you see it all the time, you get stuck believing that might be true.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, I'm not beautiful. And I think that it's beautiful that you said, wait, no, this is a temple. The Lord is a temple. And the verse that came to my head is Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. Yeah. And I think that's it's easy for us to just say it and be like, oh, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. But when you come down to it and you realize that the Lord made you in his image, and he made everybody in his image, no matter white, black, curly hair, straight hair, big nose, small nose, ears pointed, all of that was made in his image. Yes. And therefore it's all fearfully and wonderfully made, and it's all beautiful. When you come to understand that, that's the first step as you start to realize how God sees you, and then it makes it easier to start taking those steps of offering. Yeah. And I think you brought up a wonderful point that I think what's beautiful about your story is that you were a believer at this point when you got diagnosed. Yeah. And I think that that's also really understated and kind of overlooked aspect is that in our walk with Christ, if we act as if, okay, I'm fixed and I'm never going to have to go through a hurdle and the enemy's never going to put lies in my ears and
Jesus never said that.
Yeah, no, it's sometimes on your walk with Christ, you realize, whoa, today picking up my cross is a little harder than I anticipated.
It's, yeah.
These
There's some
deceit.
extra weight on here.
Yeah, they're like, yo, there's some baggage on this one. And I think that's an important case where it's like, I think a lot of times Christians feel ashamed that now, like, it's like, well, I have Jesus. Why do I feel this way now? I shouldn't feel this way. And it's like, no, the Lord wants to work with you through that, because that's the enemy attacking you.
Oh,
Like, absolutely.
easy.
But that's when you brought it to God and you're like, God, like, all I can do is just offer this, because this temple is not even mine. This is yours.
Right.
And I want to honor you. And I think that was beautiful where you said, like, you didn't try going about it in yourself and being like, oh, I got to love myself. You're like, I don't know how to love myself, but all I can do is love God.
Yes.
And if this is God's, then I have to love God by loving this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really beautiful. I think that's really underlooked. Riley, you got anything?
Yeah. I don't want to speak for you, but kind of am.
Feel free.
But I feel like the root of that and the start of that was like, you're talking about the magazine.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like comparison.
Thief of all joy.
And
Yeah.
I believe Galatians 6 brings it up, and I was trying to find it. If Danny, you can find it before me, that would be beautiful, because I was trying to find.
Do you remember what, like, the paraphrase is?
I wish I could tell you, bro, but
Don't worry, I'll work with that.
if you could find it, but yes,
I'll keep it.
You find it.
I believe it's verse 4, if I'm not correct. But comparison, and like, man, in my story and like a lot of people's stories can relate, is like comparison, what that led to, and just, man, like I saw this, and I'm gonna be this person, and like our eyes were just so fixed away from the Lord in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, you talk about feelings versus facts. It's like those feelings took control over the fact of what Jesus says and of what God says. And it's so beautiful to see, like what Danny was talking about. You realized, it's like, oh wait, like, man, I am fearfully and wonderfully made by the Lord. And like we talked about creation like a couple episodes ago. It's like, man, I am His daughter. And like to know and identify is like, and identify that. And it's like, no, I'm not what this magazine or the world portrays me to be. I am what the Lord tells me to be, and what the Lord says I am. And like knowing your identity in Christ in that as well. I think that's a huge part of that, and realizing like, man, like this is who I am. Instead of following the world, man, I mean, so many people can testify. I mean, I still struggle with this too. It's like, I see the world and I'm like, I want to be like this, I want to be like this, I want to be like this.
Oh, yeah.
And what that leads to is just like, man, like now when I'm thinking about this, my eyes are straying away from the Lord, and I'm missing what's right in front of me from what the Lord wants, from what the Lord wants for me. And so it's like, man, I'm thinking about, man, I want to dress like this person, or like I want to dress or be like this person, or I want to like be as strong as Danny, like, and I just miss. I'm gonna take my eyes off what the Lord has in front of me right now, and I look at the world.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes we can look at people for advice, and I think that's seeking advice and seeking wisdom instead of comparing ourselves.
First of all, thanks for calling me strong. That being said, I have gone through Riley's closet a lot more than any human should, and Balu's. But Faith, can you clap in the back? Like, no, multiple times. That's a clap track, because Riley did get the verse right. It was Galatians 6, verse 4, and it was, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourselves to anyone, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. And like, obviously, like that, it's a different context, obviously, but it kind of gets to the point where like, the Lord has put you on a path. The Lord has given you everything you have, which includes your body.
Yes.
Which includes your gifts, which includes just everything that we have. And when we focus on that and we remove distraction and we do good with what we are given, I think that that's the best thing. That it's kind of like what the Lord is telling us. It's like, hey, listen, do you. And you're going to see your own progress, because if you compare yourselves, that's when you start straying. And I like that you brought that up about comparison. And I think it's really important you brought that up, because I think that another part is that a lot of people don't anticipate that these conditions can develop.
Easy.
Like I like I first of all, thank you for being vulnerable about that. But like when you said like, oh, the magazines and stuff, when I like started working out, it was the exact same thing.
Oh.
Where like I started looking at everybody else, started like seeing all these pages on Instagram, and I was like, oh, like my shoulders aren't as big as him. Like I'm not as big. I'm not my jaw. Like literally nitpicking every single thing about what I look like.
My entire Instagram feed on my Explore page was all, here's how to cut calories.
Yeah.
And here's the right workout to burn the most calories.
Yeah.
And here's how I went for, like, here's how I dropped 20 pounds in a week. Like, it was all just marketing off of my insecurity. That algorithm, ooh, it'll get you.
But here's the crazy thing is that in its core, it's not bad.
No,
at the root, like working out is not bad.
Oh,
eating healthy is not bad. Taking care of your body and the temple God has given you, it's not bad.
Yeah.
But once our eyes become fixed on that, once we allow it to become idol, that's when we reap all the negative benefits instead of the positive ones.
Yeah.
My Fitness Pal, did you have that?
Yes.
Dude, there was a summer where I counted the seasonings, like teaspoons of seasoning in my prepping.
Yeah.
And like there was a
Are you
point.
Okay?
Well, I stopped. Praise God, like I stopped because my mom, like love you, mom, but she was like chill out, and I was like
Right
fair.
on, Mommy.
But I looked back and I was like, that it started off with good intention.
Yeah.
It became an idol.
Yes.
And then I started just going down the wrong path. And it takes time to develop. And I really want to like emphasize on how you said you brought that offering to God and you allowed even your food, even your eating, as difficult as it might have been mentally, you said, I'm going to sacrifice this and give this as an offering to you because right now it's difficult.
Yeah.
But if it pleases you, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I think in all avenues, we as humans, it's just as humans, we see both extreme sides of the spectrum. Like something good, if it goes astray, we forget that it can be good.
Yeah.
And something good, if it becomes too good, we forget how it can be bad for us.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing that the Lord has given us these things, but at the end of the day, when we forget the one who has given it to us and why we're doing it, and we idolize that, it just becomes another vice for us.
Yeah.
Like the gym, eating like meticulously, healthy or unhealthily, like those can be just as dangerous vices for you and addictions as all the typical addictions that we've seen as like pornography.
So I'm so eternally grateful that I did share with them because now they want to make sure I'm good, right? But a couple weeks ago, I throughout all of this, I knew that like there was no way God was going to let this go to waste. And so a couple weeks ago, I had a friend turn to me at the end of the 8 p.m. service, and they just said like, Miriam, I want healing for my eating disorder. And I was preparing to just like pray over like what I had going on, but instead I just like grabbed her by the shoulders and put her in my lap, and I just like was able to pray for her, and then like I think that was the purest love I've ever felt because I felt for her, and she was in my community group last year, context, so she knew about everything, so she felt comfortable coming to me about it, which like whenever you can see God's plan unfold before you, it's just the most rewarding thing because like God like gifts us in that we get to know that he has a plan, but like what an honor it is to actually see it like unfold. So like we've been doing accountability, and like it's also helping me make sure I eat 3 meals a day. But just to be there for each other has been the most wonderful thing, and yeah, it was really, really wonderful.
And how has that how's that dichotomy, I keep using that word, how has that relationship of accountability but not condemnation played itself out with something as I want to use the word sensitive, not in a negative connotation, but just in the fact that that is a very personal thing that like if not done correctly can go from helpful to attacking.
Yes.
And how has vulnerability allowed for that accountability to be more effective?
Just being honest at the end of the night and saying, I can't tell you that I had 3 meals a day today because I didn't. I skipped a meal. Or just like being honest, like I forgot to eat, that kind of thing. But it's been good. It's been really, really good. Can you like rephrase your question though a little bit?
So I'll read a verse that maybe shines light on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 through 11, each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weaknesses. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think what's beautiful about this is that he's talking about like taking identity in, not that his weakness is his identity, but identifying his weakness in order to attack it.
Yes.
And like when accountability comes up within someone, it takes a level of vulnerability.
Oh yeah.
Where you're like, here I am. This is the problem, and this is how I'm trying to work with it.
Yeah.
Help hold me accountable. I guess my question would be, how has that relationship seen itself play out versus like not condemning you, like you didn't eat 3 times a day versus like
do better tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you explain how valuable that is? Because I think that's a big part of Christian accountability and relationships, where when someone hears accountability, they're thinking, oh, this person's going to hold me accountable to a standard that if I don't meet, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
Versus the reality, which I want you to shine a light on, which might be the more helpful version of that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was like, thank you for sharing that with me, because I mean, Lord knows that is hard to admit to someone, because as soon as someone knows, that's someone that's going to be like, did you eat today? You know?
Did you munch? Like,
but if it, like, basically, we send each other a fun emoji at the end of the night. And so if I didn't receive it, it's just like, okay, do better next time. Like, there's no blame game, because, I mean, I have been through it and I get it. And it's not like, I don't think that this person is like doing a harm to anyone other than themselves whenever 3 meals a day aren't eaten. So it's never been like, why didn't you eat? It's just like, okay, so what can we change throughout your day to make sure you do eat? So one of the answers for that was like, okay, so what time did you wake up? I didn't sleep all day. I didn't sleep at all, actually. And so I'd be like, okay, so maybe if you sleep and you can actually have that fast when you sleep, then you'll wake up hungry and you can eat. And then maybe have a snack if you're feeling crazy.
If you're feeling wild.
Yeah, but just like, I've been trying to like emphasize like, yes, take thoughts captive and do that stop sign, but also let's reframe the thought that you just had. Like, oh, like this food had so many calories. But what about like, oh, this food had so many calories. Yes, but calories are energy. And so you're eating with other people. So like you're having community and everything. So those are all very good things. So I think that the benefits outweigh any cost. And like the calories are not even a cost. They should not be viewed that way.
I like how you said how at the end of the day, if you don't receive it, it's not like somebody wasn't eating. It's like, all right, like let's work on that. And it brings to mind the verse Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And I think that's that. At the end, I love the wordage of NLT where it's a friend sharpens a friend. Well, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's friendship to improve and to walk better and to attack these issues, not because we're condemned that we have them. It's just because we have freedom in Christ where we can battle it.
Yes.
I want to thank you, honestly, so much for being so vulnerable about that.
Yeah.
To Riley and I,
Anytime.
and just opening up. I know that this is definitely a topic that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about in churches, and I think that's something we need to change. And the fact that you took the opportunity and time to speak about it and your story, I want to thank you so much, and you did a really great job on that. Riley?
I just don't it's something that needs to be spoken on more, because it's such a private thing. Like, it can go unnoticed so easily. Like, at a restaurant, like, you can just, I mean, a lot of places have like the calories on anything, so like, yeah, you're eating, but you're choosing intentionally the lowest calorie thing, so it can easily go unnoticed. So like, I just want people to like not feel ashamed for that, because there is a way out, and his name is Jesus. Easy. Like, give it to God, because I mean, his yoke is light. So
do you have any more words for anybody that might be, if you had to speak directly to somebody who's like, I'm dealing with this, Miriam, what can I do? How do I pray that prayer? Like, what does that look like? Like, what would you tell that person if you had to talk to Miriam a couple years ago?
If I had to talk to my past self or a person struggling right now?
Well, that might be the same person, like your past self, but it could be someone today. Kind of vibe.
Okay. If that is something you're struggling with now, I encourage you, first of all, to open up the Word and understand, like, food is a gift. Food is meant for community. I mean, whenever the Israelites were wanting to get back to their promised land, God gave them manna, bread, which has carbs, to eat. So food is so important, because it's food for life, food for community, and just for energy in general. It does not have to be a burden to you. And make sure you're taking your thoughts captive, putting that stop sign in your mind, and just reframing the thought and saying, no, this food is good, I'm enjoying it, and just think about it as you're eating it, and just give it to God. Like, pray over it, and there is a way out, and therapy exists, and it is very useful, because God has given wonderful doctors that just want to help you. So definitely seek it if you are able. There are a lot of universities that offer free therapy. That's what I did, because therapy is expensive, but if you go to a university, that is a perfect resource to go ahead and use. So I just pray that you would find healing in that, because it's not easy, but it's possible.
Well, Miriam, thank you for opening up. Thank you, Danny, as well. Again, if there is something that you would love to bring to the light or tell Miriam would love to talk about it with you. I'm going to put her Instagram on our Instagram at Average Neighbors, so you guys will see it. But guys, I encourage you guys, if you guys are struggling with something, it doesn't have to be eating disorder, doesn't have to be an addiction, but literally any sin. Guys, I encourage you guys to bring it to the light, bring it to a friend, because you have no idea who's also struggling with that as well. I've seen countless testimonies where someone is struggling with something and someone's like, man, me too, and I've been struggling to open up for it. Man, I encourage you to find someone you know who loves the Lord, and you know that for a fact, and bring it to them, because they would love to pray for you, and just listen at the end of the day as well. But guys, it's been great. If you haven't seen last week's episode, check it out with Grace, the story of Grace. It's super awesome. And we will see you guys next week with a special guest. Love you guys.
Out.